Welcome back. Today, we will continue the incredible story of Kylian Mbappé. In the last video, we followed his journey from the streets of Bondy to becoming one of the brightest young stars in football. Now, the biggest challenge of his life is about to begin. The 2018 FIFA World Cup is waiting, and everything is about to change. The 2018 FIFA World Cup began with enormous expectations for the French national team. Their squad was filled with talent in every position. Experienced players brought leadership, while younger stars added speed, creativity, and fearlessness. Even with such a strong team, many football experts believed that France still needed someone capable of changing a match in a single moment. Kylian Mbappé arrived in Russia as one of the youngest players in the tournament, but he refused to think like an inexperienced teenager. During training sessions, he listened carefully to Didier Deschamps, respected the older players, and remained patient while waiting for his opportunities. He understood that the World Cup rewarded teams, not individuals. France successfully advanced through the group stage, but the real challenge arrived in the round of 16. Their opponent was Argentina, led by Lionel Messi, one of the greatest footballers in history. Around the world, millions expected Messi to guide his country toward another victory. Mbappe, however, had different plans. From the opening minutes, his speed caused serious problems for the Argentine defense. Every time he received the ball, defenders struggled to stay close to him. One breathtaking run changed the entire match. Mbappe accelerated from deep inside his own half, sprinting past several opponents before being brought down inside the penalty area. France won a penalty, and suddenly, the momentum shifted. The young forward had announced himself on the biggest stage with a run that immediately became one of the tournament's unforgettable moments. The match grew even more dramatic as both teams exchanged goals. Every attack seemed dangerous, and the atmosphere inside the stadium became more intense with each passing minute. Then, Mbappe produced the performance that changed his career forever. He scored twice with remarkable composure, showing not only incredible speed, but also the calm finishing of an experienced striker. France defeated Argentina 4-3 in one of the greatest matches of the tournament. Newspapers around the world celebrated the young French star. Many headlines compared his explosive performance to the legendary Brazilian forward Pelé, who had also amazed the world as a teenager during a World Cup. For Mbappe, however, the praise meant very little if France failed to lift the trophy. His focus never moved away from the team's ultimate objective. France continued their journey with growing confidence. In the quarterfinals, they defeated Uruguay through disciplined defending and clinical finishing. The semi-final against Belgium presented another difficult challenge. Belgium possessed one of the strongest attacking teams in the tournament, and the match required patience rather than spectacular football. Although Mbappe did not score, he contributed with intelligent movement, relentless pressing, and valuable support for his teammates. The narrow victory sent France into the World Cup final for the first time since 2006. The dressing room celebrated, but nobody believed the job was finished. One final obstacle remained between France and football's greatest prize. On the 15th of July 2018, France faced Croatia in the World Cup final at Moscow's Luzhniki Stadium. Croatia had already surprised the football world by defeating several powerful opponents, and they refused to fear anyone. The final became an emotional battle filled with pressure and unforgettable moments. France gradually gained control of the match, but nothing felt certain until Mbappé received the ball outside the penalty area during the second half. He looked up for only a fraction of a second before striking a powerful, accurate shot toward the bottom corner. The ball crossed the line and the stadium erupted. At 19 years old, Mbappé became only the second teenager in history, after Pelé, to score in a World Cup final. It was the goal that transformed an extraordinary young talent into a global football icon. When the final whistle blew, joy exploded across the pitch. Players hugged each other, coaches celebrated, and thousands of French supporters filled the stadium with songs and tears of happiness. Mbappé smiled as he lifted the FIFA World Cup trophy alongside his teammates. Just a few years earlier, he had been another ambitious child running through the streets of Bondy with impossible dreams. Now he stood at the very top of world football before his 20th birthday. Yet, as unforgettable as that night was, it also marked the beginning of a completely different challenge. Winning the World Cup had made him famous across the globe. From that moment forward, people would no longer ask whether Kylian Mbappé could become a superstar. Instead, they would expect him to remain one for many years to come. The celebrations eventually came to an end, but the expectations never disappeared. Returning to Paris as a world champion meant carrying even greater responsibility at club level. Paris Saint-Germain wanted European glory. Supporters expected constant brilliance, and every opponent dreamed of stopping football's newest superstar. In the next chapter, Mbappé would discover that staying at the top could be even more difficult than reaching it for the first time. Returning to Paris after the World Cup felt completely different from anything Kylian Mbappé had experienced before. Crowds gathered wherever he appeared. Children wore his jersey. Fans waited outside stadiums for hours. And journalists wanted to hear every word he said. Winning the World Cup had changed his life forever. But while the celebrations continued around him, Mbappé knew football had already moved on. A new season was beginning, and every opponent wanted to defeat the young world champion. Success had made him famous, but it had also made him a target. Defenders studied his movements more carefully than ever before. Coaches created special plans to stop his speed. Every match became another test of whether he could live up to the enormous expectations that now followed him everywhere. Mbappé responded in the best possible way, with consistent performances. Season after season, he scored goals with remarkable regularity and became one of the most dangerous forwards in Europe. His acceleration remained almost impossible to defend, but his overall game also continued to improve. He became a better passer, a more intelligent decision-maker, and a stronger leader on the pitch. Instead of relying only on his natural speed, he learned how to control the rhythm of a match. Sometimes he attacked defenders directly. Other times he waited patiently before making a perfectly timed run. These improvements showed that he was becoming a complete footballer rather than simply one of the fastest players in the world. Although Paris Saint-Germain continued to dominate French football, everyone inside the club knew that domestic trophies were no longer enough. The owners, players, and supporters all shared one dream: winning the UEFA Champions League. Every season began with that objective. Every knockout match brought enormous pressure. Mbappé often delivered memorable performances in Europe, scoring against some of the continent's strongest clubs. Yet football's biggest competition can be unpredictable. Small mistakes, injuries, or moments of bad luck sometimes changed an entire season. More than once, PSG came painfully close to reaching their goal before watching it disappear. Those disappointments taught Mbappé that talent alone could never guarantee success. One of the most unforgettable moments came during the 2019-20 Champions League season. Despite the unusual circumstances created by the global pandemic, PSG fought their way to the club's first-ever Champions League final. Mbappé played an important role throughout the campaign, helping the team overcome difficult opponents and keeping the dream alive. In the final, however, PSG faced Bayern Munich, one of Europe's strongest and most disciplined teams. It was a tense match, decided by the smallest details. Bayern won 1-0, leaving the Paris players heartbroken. Mbappé walked off the pitch, knowing they had come closer than ever before. Yet the greatest prize in club football had slipped away once again. The following years brought even more attention to Paris. In 2021, Lionel Messi joined PSG, creating one of the most famous attacking trios in football history, alongside Neymar and Mbappé. Supporters around the world imagined endless goals and unforgettable victories. Playing with Messi gave Mbappé the chance to learn from one of the greatest players ever to play the game. Their different styles often complemented each other beautifully. At the same time, expectations reached extraordinary levels. Anything less than Champions League success was viewed as disappointment. Every draw, every defeat, and every missed opportunity became international news. Mbappé found himself at the center of constant discussion, balancing personal ambition with the responsibility of helping one of football's most famous teams achieve its greatest dream. As Mbappé entered his 20s, many experts began asking a new question. He had already won the World Cup, multiple league titles, and individual awards. But could he become the defining player of his generation? Comparisons with Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi became increasingly common. While such discussions attracted headlines, Mbappé rarely spoke about them. He understood that football history is written over many years, not a few successful seasons. The only way to build a lasting legacy was to continue improving, remain hungry for success, and perform when the pressure was greatest. Soon, another World Cup would offer him exactly that opportunity. By late 2022, football's attention shifted toward Qatar. France arrived as defending world champions, determined to defend their title against the strongest national teams on earth. Mbappé had matured into the leader of the French attack, carrying greater responsibility than ever before. Few people realized they were about to witness one of the greatest individual performances in World Cup history. In the next chapter, Mbappé would produce a final that the football world would remember for generations, even if the ending was not the one he had dreamed of. The 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar began with one important question. Could France become the first team in more than 60 years to successfully defend the World Cup? History suggested it would be almost impossible. The tournament always brought surprises, injuries, and unexpected results. Even before the first match, France lost several important players because of injuries. Many experts believed those absences would seriously weaken the defending champions. But inside the French camp, nobody wanted excuses. Didier Deschamps trusted the players who were available, and Kylian Mbappé accepted even greater responsibility. He was no longer the fearless teenager who had amazed the world in Russia 4 years earlier. At 23 years old, he had become the leader of France's attack. Every opponent focused on stopping him, yet he welcomed that challenge instead of avoiding it. He understood that truly great players are judged by how they perform when the pressure is at its highest. From the very beginning of the tournament, Mbappé looked unstoppable. His pace remained extraordinary, but his game had become far more complete than it had been in 2018. He no longer relied only on explosive runs behind defenders. He moved intelligently between the lines, created space for teammates, and finished chances with remarkable confidence. Against Australia, Denmark, and Poland, he produced moments of brilliance that reminded the football world why he was considered one of the best players on the planet. Every goal increased his confidence, and every victory strengthened France's belief that another World Cup triumph was possible. France continued advancing through the knockout rounds with confidence. England pushed them to their limits in a tense quarter-final, but France found a way to win. Morocco, the surprise team of the tournament, fought bravely in the semi-final, inspiring millions with their historic journey. Yet France's experience and quality eventually proved decisive. As the final whistle blew, Mbappé embraced his teammates with quiet satisfaction. They had reached another World Cup final. Waiting on the other side was Argentina, led by Lionel Messi. The match immediately became more than a football game. Many people described it as a battle between generations. On one side stood Messi, chasing the one trophy that had always escaped him. On the other stood Mbappé, hoping to win a second consecutive World Cup before turning 24. The stage could not have been any bigger. The final began in the worst possible way for France. Argentina played with incredible intensity and quickly built a 2-goal lead. For long periods, Mbappé hardly found any space. French attacks broke down before reaching the penalty area, and the defending champions seemed close to surrendering their title. Around the world, millions believed the match was already over. Then, within just 97 unforgettable seconds, everything changed. Mbappé calmly converted a penalty before immediately scoring a spectacular volley after a perfectly timed exchange with his teammate. Suddenly, the score was level. The impossible had become possible. France had returned from the edge of defeat because one player refused to stop believing. The stadium exploded with emotion as football fans realized they were witnessing one of the greatest World Cup finals ever played. Extra time brought even more unforgettable drama. Lionel Messi restored Argentina's lead. But once again, Mbappé refused to accept defeat. Late in extra time, France won another penalty. With millions watching around the world, Mbappé stepped forward once more. He remained calm, struck the ball confidently, and completed his hat trick. Very few players in football history had ever scored 3 goals in a World Cup final. Yet, despite his extraordinary achievement, the match still refused to produce a winner. Everything would now depend on a penalty shootout. Both teams gathered together one final time before walking toward the center circle. Every player understood that the next few minutes would become part of football history forever. The penalty shootout ended in heartbreak for France. Argentina converted their penalties with confidence, while France missed crucial attempts. As the final kick found the net, Argentine players celebrated one of the greatest victories in their country's history. Mbappé stood quietly, holding the match ball he had earned by scoring 3 goals. It was a powerful image that quickly spread around the world. He had produced one of the finest individual performances ever seen in a World Cup final. Yet, football can sometimes be beautifully cruel. Outstanding performances do not always guarantee victory. Although disappointment filled his face, he congratulated his opponents with respect. That moment revealed something important about his character. Great champions celebrate success with humility, but they also accept defeat with dignity. Many players would have needed months to recover from such a painful defeat. Mbappé chose a different response. He returned to training, continued scoring goals, and focused on the future instead of the past. His performance in Qatar had strengthened his reputation rather than weakened it. Football fans now understood that they had witnessed not only an incredible athlete, but also a player capable of delivering under unimaginable pressure. Yet another important decision was approaching. His future at Paris Saint-Germain became one of the biggest stories in world football. Rumors about a move to Real Madrid returned once again, louder than ever before. In the final chapter, Mbappé would make the decision that many believed had been waiting for him since he was a teenager, and begin the next chapter of an already extraordinary career. The months after the 2022 World Cup were filled with endless questions about Kylian Mbappe's future. Every transfer window brought new rumors. Every interview created another headline. Would he remain at Paris Saint-Germain, where he had already become one of the club's greatest players? Or would he finally join Real Madrid, the club that had admired him since he was a teenager? Supporters, journalists, and former footballers all had different opinions, but only Mbappé truly knew how difficult the decision was. Paris had given him unforgettable memories, league titles, and the chance to become a global superstar. At the same time, Real Madrid represented another dream, a club whose history had been built by generations of legendary players. Choosing between loyalty and a new challenge was never going to be simple. For several years, speculation surrounded every contract negotiation. Sometimes it seemed that a transfer to Madrid was only days away. At other moments, Mbappé chose to stay in Paris, believing there was still unfinished business at the club. Those decisions created intense debate among football fans, but they also demonstrated the enormous pressure that comes with being one of the world's biggest stars. Every choice he made affected clubs, supporters, teammates, and even the business side of football. While millions discussed his future online, Mbappé continued to do what he had always done best. He trained hard, scored goals, and tried to keep his attention on the pitch rather than on the constant noise surrounding him. Then, in the summer of 2024, the decision finally arrived. After years of rumors, Kylian Mbappé officially joined Real Madrid. For football fans, it was one of the biggest transfers of the decade. For Mbappé, it represented the beginning of another chapter, rather than the end of the previous one. During his official presentation at the Santiago Bernabéu Stadium, tens of thousands of supporters welcomed him with enormous excitement. Wearing the famous white shirt for the first time, he smiled as he looked around the stadium. It was a moment he had imagined ever since visiting Madrid as a young teenager. Years of patience, difficult choices, and extraordinary performances had finally brought him to one of football's greatest stages. Joining Real Madrid did not mean that success would come automatically. The club's history is built on extraordinary standards. Every season, supporters expect trophies. Every match attracts worldwide attention. Great players are remembered not only for their talent, but also for how they perform when the pressure is greatest. Mbappé understood this better than anyone. He arrived not simply to wear the famous white jersey, but to help write the next chapter in the club's remarkable history. Once again, he found himself in a situation that felt strangely familiar. Just as he had done in Monaco, Paris, and the French national team, he needed to prove himself all over again. Looking back, the journey seems almost unbelievable. A young boy from Bondy spent countless afternoons chasing a football on small neighborhood pitches. His parents encouraged him to dream, while reminding him that discipline mattered as much as talent. He worked through the demanding years at Clairefontaine, developed at Monaco, became a world champion with France before turning 20, and established himself as one of the most recognizable athletes on earth. None of those achievements happened overnight. Behind every celebration were thousands of unseen hours filled with training, sacrifice, disappointment, and determination. His story reminds us that extraordinary success is rarely created by one magical moment. It is built slowly, one decision and one training session at a time. Even today, Mbappé's story is still being written. New seasons will bring new challenges, new teammates, and new opportunities to make history. Records may be broken, trophies may be won or lost, but one thing has remained unchanged since his childhood. Every time he steps onto a football pitch, he still carries the same ambition that first appeared in Bondi many years ago. The desire to become better than he was yesterday continues to drive him forward. That mindset, more than his speed or his goals, may be the greatest reason for his success. Football constantly changes, but the hunger to improve is timeless. Kylian Mbappé's journey is about far more than football. It is a story of courage, discipline, patience, and belief. It shows that talent can open a door, but only hard work allows someone to walk through it. From the streets of Bondy to the World Cup, from Monaco to Paris, and finally to Madrid, every chapter prepared him for the next. His career continues, and nobody knows exactly how many more trophies or records await him. But one thing is already certain. The boy who once dreamed of becoming a football legend has inspired millions of young people around the world to believe that impossible dreams can become real when they are matched with relentless effort and unwavering determination.